Welcome to the inspired Parsha. Character and Midos development based on the Parsha of the week. This week, Parshas Beshalach. The topic is laughter and turnabout. January 27th, 2021. What is laughter? True laughter is expressed in Shir HaMalos, we say in benching every Shabbos. Az yemale sechok pinu uleshonenu rina. Taken from Tehillim, chapter 126, pasuk 2, it says, "Then was our mouth filled with laughter and our tongue with singing." True laughter comes about when we expect one thing and something else happens. When we expect one thing to happen and the opposite happens, that elicits true laughter. It is the unexpected which creates the contrast. That leads to laughter. When Egypt, Mitzrayim, wanted to destroy us, the Jewish people, by chasing into the sea, which split and brought about its own destruction, that Mitzrayim went into the sea and destroyed itself by running into the sea and drowning in the very sea that they wanted to destroy us with. That is true irony. That is true laughter. And that leads to spiritual laughter. Sechok pinu. This is not the same thing as laughter, laughing at a joke. This is a deep inner laughter. It's caused by the inner knowledge that something is guiding the turnabout. The turnabout, the nahafachu, the reversal, the opposite, could not happen without the hand of Hashem. This is not an accident. This is hashgacha pratis. This is God's divine hand that's causing the reversal. That brings out our true inner laughter, our true inner v'nahafochu, from despair to simcha. It's an inner consciousness, the real laughter, the real inner joy, the inner rina. Uleshonenu rina, the joy on our tongues, is that we are not alone. The true simcha that we have within ourselves is that we are not alone. That life is not an accident. Life is not a series of random events. Rather, it is guided by Hashem, the higher power. The Torah tells us in Shmos chapter 10, talking about Yetzias Mitzrayim and Haggadah, Uleman tispor ba'oznei bincha uven bincha es asher his'alalti b'Mitzrayim ves ososai asher samti vam v'yedatem k'ani Hashem. That you may tell in the ears of your son and your son's son what I have caused upon Egypt, and my signs which I have done to them, that you may know that I am Hashem. Rashi says the word v'his alalti means I have mocked him. The Ramban explains the word his alalti, I have caused, I have mocked them. And the Ramban says, I have mocked him, for it is I who has hardened their heart and exacted punishments upon him. His alalti means to mock, to make fun of. And the ultimate joy and inner laughter that we can experience, that spiritual laughter, is that evil will be destroyed. That ra, that evil in the world, will be destroyed and be destroyed by its own hand. That evil will implode on itself. That Paro and Mitzrayim killed themselves. That's the inner nahafochu, the knowledge that only Hashem can cause that reversal, that v'nahafochu, showing that there's divine providence and that evil will be destroyed by its own hand. As it says in Tehillim chapter 2, pasuk 4, Yoshev b'shamayim yitzchak Hashem. Hashem yil'ag lamo. He who sits in heaven laughs. The Lord mocks them. Yoshev b'shamayim yitzchak Hashem yil'ag lamo. Hashem will mock them. How? By causing them to destroy, to implode upon themselves. You know the famous saying in Yiddish, the man tracht and the Gott lacht. Man acts, man travails, man works, and Hashem laughs. The ultimate laughter of Hashem is that man wants to do evil. He takes the breath Hashem gives us, and we try to rebel against Hashem by going against his will. That itself, going against Hashem's will, is the v'nahafochu, which will destroy ourselves, destroy the evil. The evil will destroy itself. Hashem laughs at the evil. Gott lacht means God will laugh at the evil in the world and all of the attempts to block his plan in the universe. And therefore he laughs by causing the reversal of the evil plans of the evil ones, and ironically causes the opposite of what they intended to take place. This causes a cosmic laughter. The laughter is that evil has no staying power. It will ultimately destroy itself until such time as the words of Shir HaShirim come true. Az yemales chokpinu ushonenu rina. Then at the ultimate reversal, the ultimate coming of Mashiach, the ultimate reversal of all the subjugation, shibud galiyos, when Hashem causes all the nations to implode upon themselves, that's going to be the full laughter. Az yemales chokpinu. Our mouth will be full with laughter. Laughter that Hashem reverses the course of history and causes the Jewish people to come to redemption. This laughter is no more apparent with Pharaoh's obstinacy to refuse to see the hand of Hashem, which ultimately led to his downfall. When Pharaoh himself led 600 chariots, Rechev Mitzrayim, into the so-called dry land, the sea split. The Jewish nation crossed the sea, was about to reach the other side. There was dry land. Pharaoh saw, that's a time now to jump in the water in the dry land that has just been vacated by the roaring sea. And the Jews have crossed. We're going to cross with them and attack them. And his intention was to destroy the Jewish people and to belittle the Shem Hashem. Chas v'shalom. The God he did not recognize. And behold, Hine, the actual blasphemous pursuit of the Jewish people onto the dry land that he said, I am going to be on the dry land. I'm going to use that as a platform to kill the Jewish people. His coming into that dry land brought about the revelation of Hashem's hand and Hashem's power of the splitting of the sea by causing the waves to come back upon him and destroying him, showing that Hashem controls nature and history. And he caused Pharaoh and his army to destroy themselves by their own hand. What folly! What ridiculous military strategy was that? That he just saw the 10 plagues. He just saw Yetzias Mitzrayim, Goy Mikerav Goy, a nation which never escaped from Egypt. No person ever escaped from Egypt before. And no whole nation escaped from Egypt. He saw the 10 plagues, Zamakash Bechoros. Wouldn't he think that this must be a trap? This must be a mistake? Why would he do that? Why would folly enter his mind to say, I'm going to go after the Jewish people? Didn't he see the hand of Hashem? Such denial, such evil. Evil means a Rasha, to deny the hand of Hashem, to deny that God runs the world. And he saw it clearly. He saw the Hashgacha clearly. 10 plagues. Yetzias Mitzrayim. And now comes Kriyas Yamsuf, and he goes in and leads his nation to die in the dry land, the so-called dry land, which Hashem covered over them. Tubu Yamsuf. They drowned in the Yamsuf. On their own accord, they killed themselves. And through his folly, through his obstinacy, Hashem's name was sanctified, as the Torah tells us in Shmos chapter 14 in this week's Parsha. V'chazakti es leiv Paro, v'radaf achareim. I will harden his heart, and I will cause Paro to run after. Hashem predicted it. Hashem said it. I will harden his heart and I will cause him to run after the Jewish people. V'ikavda b'faro u'b'chol chelo v'yedu Mitzrayim ani Hashem ki ani Hashem v'yasuchin. I will harden Hashem Pharaoh's heart, and he shall follow after the Jewish people, and I will get me honor upon Pharaoh and upon all his host. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord. And they did so. The honor of Hashem, the Kiddush Hashem, was done by whom? By Pharaoh. The ikavda, the Pharaoh. Ikavda, kavod. I will be honored by Pharaoh. I will get me honor upon Pharaoh. Now let's ask a question. Let's think Talmudically. Let's analyze this concept. Let's use critical thinking. And let's ask the ultimate question. And I'm sure you're thinking this question with me. Why would the Torah attribute the honoring of Hashem to an evil Paro? Why would this be called a Kiddush Hashem, that a person who wanted to destroy the Jewish people and to belittle Hashem himself causes the honor to Hashem? Wouldn't the honor of Hashem be greater by Kiddush Hashem, by the Jewish people, by Klal Yisrael, by Moshe Rabbeinu, by Aaron HaKohen, by the Mishkan, which it did? But why is there in the Torah itself says, I shall be honored by Paro? Why? Why would Hashem want to be honored by an evil man? The answer is, says my Rebbe, Rav Moshe Shapira Zatzal, the astounding answer is that the Derech Hashem, the way of God, is to show that all attempts at evil will ultimately reveal the good. That evil will reveal the good. That there is no possibility of evil being victorious. And that everything is orchestrated and guided by the hand of Hashem. And that's why it had to be Pharaoh. It had to be Pharaoh. The evil itself had to acknowledge that Hashem is God. Because it is Hashem's will to show that evil implodes on itself. Evil reverses itself. Evil destroys itself. Evil devours itself. And therefore brings about good. In other words, evil cannot and does not exist. It has no intrinsic truth and existence. Only Hashem exists. And this is the meaning of what's known as the Maaseh Merkava, the chariot of Hashem. There is something in Kabbalah called Maaseh Breshis, how Hashem created the world. And the Gemara Chagiga talks about who can learn that. That's Kabbalah. We're not allowed to learn that. Only a master to a student who's also a master, 1-to-1, after the age of 40. Someone who knows Kol HaTorah Kula can understand and study Maaseh Breshis, the way God created the world. And there's a second area of Kabbalah called the Maaseh Merkava. The Maaseh Merkava is the vision of Chizkiyahu Hanavi, who saw the vision of Hashem, who saw the chariot of Hashem. And that can also only be studied 1-to-1. Master to student who's also a master who studied the whole Torah after the age of 40, 1-to-1, not taught in Berabim. The third area of Kabbalah is called Tamei HaMitzvos, the taste, the reason for mitzvos, that we're allowed to study. The reason behind the mitzvah, the symbolism, the meaning, the deeper meaning of Shabbos and Tefillin and Kashrus. That we're allowed to study. That's called Tamei HaMitzvos, part of Kabbalah. That is permissible to learn. The Inyan, generally speaking, of the Maaseh Merkava, the chariot of God, means, generally speaking, that God holds the reins. That's called Hashgacha, how God runs the world. Maaseh Breshis, how God created the world, is something we're not allowed to study, is how God created the universe. That's not we're not allowed to study that. We're also not allowed to study how God runs the universe. That's Hashgacha Pratis. We experience Hashgacha Pratis. We experience God's guiding hand in our lives. We feel it. We experience it every day when we are God conscious. But to study the workings and the mechanics of how that happens, that's not allowed. That's Kabbalah. That's not allowed, says the Gemara in Chagiga. But we understand that the concept, the general concept of the idea of Ma'aser Merkava means that the God runs the world like a chariot. What does it mean, like a chariot? Why is divine providence called a chariot of God? A Ma'aser Merkava. Because it appears that when you see a chariot traveling from a distance toward you, you see a horse, but it's so far away you don't see the reins. You think the horse is pulling a chariot by itself. When it comes closer, 50, 100 feet away, you see there's a man in the chariot, and it comes closer, you see there's reins, that the chariot driver is holding the reins and is guiding the horse. But from a distance, it looks like the horse is running it by itself. That's Ma'aser Merkava. It looks like the world is running by itself. It looks like the world is happening by natural happenstance, by random events. It looks like the horse is guiding the chariot by itself. There's nobody in there. There's nobody in the chariot box carrying and guiding the chariot. It looks like the horse is running the world by itself, on its own. But on further investigation, we see there's a chariot driver who holds the reins and is guiding the horse and the chariot. This is what the Shechinah saw at the sea. This is the handmaiden who saw at the sea, the splitting of the sea, and the Egyptians dying by their own hand. They saw the Shechinah. They saw Hashgacha Pratis. They saw God is the one who's holding on to the reins and guiding this world. How? By the fact that Paro ran into the sea with 600 choice soldiers, 600 chariots, with great, incredible folly, with ridiculous mistake. And they saw that that's how Hashem caused him to do that, by putting that in his mind to do that. And therefore, they saw the Hashgacha of Hashem. They saw the hand of God. God runs. Only God could have done that. After the 10 plagues and after Yetzias Mitzrayim, to go into the dry land, don't you think there's something going on over here? You're so in denial of Hashem running the world that you think that this is going to be an easy conquest? Are you so obstinate? Are you such a Rasha? A Rasha means someone who denies the existence of God and the hand of God in the world. Are you such a person? Only God could cause him to do that. That's what the Shivcha Ra'asa Bayam. That's what the handmaiden saw by the Yam, and that's why she was Zoche, the Shivcha, the handmaidens by the sea, saw a greater hand of God than Yechezkel ben Buzi, Yechezkel the Navi, when he saw the Ma'aser Merkava, he saw the prophecy of the angels and the Srafim in chapter 1 of Yechezkel. They were privy to more divine providence and more understanding of how God runs the world than Yechezkel the Navi. They all became Navim. Why? A Navi means someone who understands, who sees, who experiences, who lives with Hashgachas Hashem and experiences within their own being. And the ultimate Ma'aser Merkava was seen by the Shivcha Bayam when it says in the Shira that we sing the Shabbos, Markebois Paro v'chilo Yaravayam. Pharaoh's chariots and his host he cast into the sea. Not just the chariot and not just the horse, but the rider, Sus v'rochvo Ramavayam. The ultimate hand of Hashem, the Hashgach of Hashem, is that he ultimately took the Hashgach of Hashem, turned around the will of Paro, the obstinate will of evil of Paro, and turned it into the Kiddush Hashem of destroying evil by its own hand. That was the Hashgacha. That was the miracle of what the Shivcha Ra'asa Bayam Mashalo Ra'a Yechezkel ben Buzi. What Yechezkel saw in his vision was divine providence, Ma'aser Merkava, but the handmaiden at the sea did more. She didn't see Hashgacha, she experienced Hashgacha. She experienced God's guidance. She saw it, she experienced it, she saw the death of the Egyptians al Sfas Hayam. What is our job? What can we learn in terms of our own personal midos development, our own character development, as we learn from this parsha of the hashgacha of Shivcha Rasa Bayam, Mashalo Ra'a Yechezkel Ben Buzi? How can we grow from it? How can we grow in our avodas Hashem, in our service of God, get closer to Hashem? What's the message we can learn? The message we can learn and to upgrade our service of God is not to believe in hashgacha, not to believe in divine providence, not to believe that God is guiding us, not to believe that we are with God, that God is with us, rather to experience divine providence, to live daily with the idea that Hashem is with us and guiding us in our lives. The upgrade is called God consciousness, to be aware that God is guiding us in every step that we take. We act, God reacts. The hashgacha, the divine providence, envelops us. And thereby, our job to grow in our Yiddishkeit is to experience our relationship with God as an ongoing dialogue, a siach, an ongoing dialogue and relationship of give and take with Hashem. That's experiencing the relationship with Hashem. This is called the Shechinah. What is this thing called Shechinah, divine providence, the feminine dimension of God? What is Shechinah? The Torah tells us in chapter 4 of Devarim, chapter 4, verse 34, O Hanisa Elokim lavo lakachas lo goy mikerav goy, b'masos be'osos u'b'mosim, u'b'milchama, u'b'yad chazaka, u'b'zro netuya, u'v'moraim gedolim kechol asher asa lachem Hashem Elokechem b'mitzrayim le'enecha. Has God essayed to go and take him a nation from the midst of another nation? Goy mikerav goy, by trials, signs, wonders, war, a mighty hand, an outstretched arm, and by great terrors, according to all that Hashem your God did for you in Egypt before your eyes? Have you seen this great outstretched hand, this hashgacha of Hashem guiding us out of Egypt? Never happened before. That's called, Targum Yonason explains the word ubimoraim gedolim, great terrors, mora gedola, great terror. He explains it as follows: bechaznunim ravrevim, with great and awesome sights. Seeing Hashem's hand is chaznunim ravrevim. In other words, gilui Shechinah, the revealing of the Shechinah, means the revealing of hashgacha pratis. Shechinah means divine providence. When we want to experience, when we say, I want to see the Shechinah, when I experience the Shechinah, what you're saying is, I experience hashgacha pratis. Shechinah means divine providence. The Noda Yehuda says. The Noda Yehuda says, hashgacha pratis is called Shechinah. He says it beferish. Hashgacha pratis, divine providence, is called Shechinah, such that when Klal Yisrael does the will of God, they receive God's direct providence and guidance, which is revealed upon them. And then we say, Hashchina Shruya B'Yisrael. Divine presence rests on Israel. Divine presence, Shechinah, is the same thing as Hashgacha pratis. The Rambam says it in the Moreh Nevuchim, in chapter 25. The Rambam says the following: the word shachein, to dwell, signifies that shochein in the plains of Mamre, that Avram dwelled in the plains of Mamre. Dwelling in a place, says the Rambam, consists of a continued stay in a place, which is employed in the reference to Hashem. Hashem is shochein, he dwells in a specific place. That denotes the continuance of his divine presence, his Shechinah, says the Rambam. God dwelling, shochein, Shechinah, mishkenosecha, matovo olecha Yaakov, mishkenosecha Yisrael, mishkenosecha, your divine dwelling, means the Shechinah, mishkenosecha, Shechinah means divine presence, divine providence. Where the divine presence, says the Rambam, is manifest constantly. Whenever the term is applied to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, says the Rambam, it is consistent in the context of referring to the presence of his Shechinah. That means his light, the light of Hashem. What does it mean, the light of God? The Or Hashem. The Or Hashem, the light of Hashem. May Hashem shine his light upon you means divine providence. Light and Shechinah means Hashgacha Pratis. When God shines his light in a certain place, when we can experience that light, when you see that light, when you experience the glow, the presence of Hashem, you're experiencing the hand of God. That's the Shechinah, that's the Or Hashem. And that's the continuous, says the Rambam, that's the continuation of his providence protecting a certain place or a certain object. The Shechinah means he dwells upon something or in a place. Kiviyachol shines his light there means he is guiding that place and you feel it. When you are awake, when you are stay woke, when you are conscious, when you're awake, when you have God consciousness, and you see that whatever happens to you is guided by Hashem, you breathe that in, that's a relationship with God. The Rabbeinu Yonah says, when one sees Hashem's divine providence through witnessing his wonders and salvations, this is called Gilui Shechinah. Rabbeinu Yonah also says it. He says that divine providence means Gilui Shechinah, the revealing of the Shechinah means Hashgacha Pratis. You're seeing God's hand in your life. The revelation of Hashem's presence. And one says, Rabbeinu Yonah, one who merits to witness this is considered Mekabel Pnei Shechinah, a receiver of the divine presence. So we have to work on experiencing the Shechinah. Our avodah this week, to learn from this experience of Benahafochu, of seeing Hashem's hand in destroying Mitzrayim by their own hand, is to see Hashgachas Hashem in our own lives, to see the light of Hashem, the Shechinah of Hashem, by seeing that things that happen to us are not happenstance, and to notice them, to acknowledge them, and to try to see them in real time. That's God consciousness. That's our relationship with Hashem. When we have mindfulness of God's presence during tefillah, an experience that Hashem is speaking with us, and we're speaking with Hashem during tefillah, that making that tefillah into a siach, into a conversation, like Yitzchak Avinu did. Vayetze Yitzchak lasuach basadeh lifnos arev. And Yitzchak went out to meditate on the field at the eventide. Bereshis chapter 24, pasuk 63. He had a siach. He davened mincha, he established mincha. That was a dialogue, a conversation with Hashem. Our relationship with Hashem must be a conversation, a dialogue, an ongoing relationship of consciousness. So our goal is to make our tefillah, our prayer, and our lives an ongoing conversation with Hashem, a dialogue, even outside the formal times of tefillah. That's seeing the hashgacha, the Shechinah, the light of Hashem in our hand, in our lives, to make a dynamic, ongoing relationship with Hashem. How do we do this? It says in the Shira that we're going to sing on Shabbos, and we stand up for the Shira, Parshas Beshalach. We say, Az Yashir Moshe v'nei Yisrael Ashir Azos Lashem, Ashir Lashem Ki Golga, Sus V'roch Marav Yom, Aziv Zim Raska, V'yish Zek Keli V'anveyu. This is my God, and I will glorify Him. Zek Keli, this is my God, and I will glorify. Anveyu, Navet, beautiful. I will beautify, I will glorify God. Zek Keli, this is my God, V'anveyu. This is what the handmaidens saw at the sea. This they said, Zek Keli, this is my God. I see Him. I experience God. I see the light of Hashem. I see the Hashem. Zek Keli, V'anveyu, and I will glorify Him. Says the Gemara in Shabbos, Kuf Lam and Gimel, Amud Beis, page 133b, says the following. What is V'anvehu? How do you glorify? How do you beautify God? Abashal Omer, Abashal tells us, Mahu rachum af ata heyarachum. As God is merciful, you be merciful. That's how you glorify and beautify God. If Hashem is merciful, you act with mercifulness, with mercy on others, and you are bringing God into the world through your actions of Bechira. Mahu chanun, he is empathic, you be empathic. Mahu chanun af ata heyachanun. How do you glorify God? How do you beautify God? By acting like Him. How do you act like God? So in Parshas Kisisa, chapter 34, pasuk Vav and Zayin, 6 and 7, chapter 34 in Shmos, Exodus, chapter 34, verse 6 and 7, after the Egel, Hashem told us what his midos are. And he said, Vayavar Hashem al panav vayikra. Hashem passed before Moshe Rabbeinu, and he covered Moshe Rabbeinu's eyes, and he said, Hashem, Hashem, kel rachum v'chanun, erech apayim, v'rav chesed v'yemes, no tzerech chesed la'alafim, no se'avon v'fesha v'chata v'nakei. Those are the 13 midos harachamim of Hashem. These are the 13 attributes of God. And Hashem breathed one or two of those attributes into each of us. How do you glorify God? How do you bring hashgacha? How do you have a relationship with God? How do you have a dialogue with God? How do you see the light of God? By acting like God. The purpose of life is to act like Hashem. To act like God. Mahurachum af ata heyarachum. As he is merciful, you act mercifully. Where is that taken from? Right here. Chapter 34 in Shmos, it says the 13 attributes of God. What is Hashem? Hashem means consistency. We have to identify which is your strongest midah. What is your strongest godly midah that God breathed into you? It says, Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chaim. Hashem breathed into Adam a living spirit. Each of us has a breath of God within ourselves. That's what neshama means. A neshama means a neshima, a breath. Hashem breathed into us a neshima, a breath. The word neshima is the same word as neshama. So your neshama is a breath of God. Breathe in. When you breathe every day, you breathe 20, 30 times a minute, and you breathe not consciously, then you're missing the relationship with God. You're missing the awareness of the neshama of God breathed into you. When you do it with consciousness, you're realizing that God is with you. Of course he's with you. Of course there's a God. Where are you breathing from? From where are you gaining that breath? You're breathing in, breathe in. And we breathe in a desensitized fashion because we do it by rote, desensitized, expecting that the next breath to come. But it's a gift. Breathe in with consciousness. Breathe in. Be aware of the air filling up your lungs and oxygenating your blood and going to your brain and going to all your systems. That's God in you. That's God breathing himself into you. That's God consciousness. When you're aware of it, you're breathing out the neshima of God. Who's breathing into you? When you breathe in, God is breathing out into you. When you breathe in, God is breathing out into you. God is the glass blower. The Nefesh HaChaim in chapter 16, chapter Shar Aleph, chapter 16, Mchai Volozhner says that Hashem is the glass blower. He blows into the tube air, breath, and we are the swan at the end of the tube. And we become the swan. We become the glass figure. We become the figurine. We become the image of God. And that's through breath, through breathing. Neshima is neshama. Everyone has one. The question is, what's the Baskin-Robbins flavor of your neshama? Everyone has a breath of God within them, Jew and non-Jew. Neshima. God vivifies everything, gives life to everything, Jew and non-Jew. A non-Jew also has a neshama, a different destiny of their neshama. Their destiny is to do 7 mitzvahs. Our destiny of our neshama is 613 mitzvahs. To be Am Hashem. When you breathe in and you're conscious of that breath, now what is your particular mission in God's plan? Everyone has a mission. Everyone has a neshama, a neshima, a breath in God's plan. Part of God, God's stream of consciousness. We are an expression of God's consciousness. I'm an expression of God. You're an expression of God, expression of godliness. What's the Baskin-Robbins flavor? What's the Ben and Jerry's color flavor of your? Is it coconut swirl? Is it chunky monkey? Is it chocolate caramel? Different colors, different flavors of ice cream. So too, there are different flavors of neshamas. What are they? 13 attributes of God. Each of us has a different constellation. I want you right now, I invite you right now to try to discover what is the flavor of what's the Baskin Robbins, Ben and Jerry's flavor of your neshama? What's the purpose of your neshama? What is your strongest attribute? You discover your purpose in this world and your ongoing dialogue with Hashem, nashgacha with Hashem, by bringing out into the world the attribute of God that He placed within you. He breathed within you. He breathed a neshama, but He breathed a particular dimension of color, of flavor of your neshama. What is it? Hashem, Hashem. Are you consistent? Are you persevering? Is that who you are? If you are that consistent person, then you have to bring consistency and perseverance into the world. That's bringing God into the world. That's bringing hashgacha into the world through your bechira, through your free will. Hashem, Hashem. Going on in this pasuk. Hashem, Hashem. Kale. Kale is mighty in chesed. Are you powerful, dynamic, outgoing? Is that a leader? Is that your strength? Is that your godliness? Is that your godly attribute? Hashem. Hashem, Hashem. Kale. Rachum. Compassion. Is rachum, rachamim, merciful. Compassion, is that who you are? Is that your mission? Is that your job that God breathed Himself in? When God breathed Himself into you, He means He breathed a mission into you. God is with you because He's always with you, because when you're breathing in godliness. You're breathing in God consciousness. When you're awake, when you're conscious, when you're woke, when you're God conscious, and you're aware of your mission every second, you're aware of what your attribute is that God gave you, and you use it to serve God. That's a relationship with God. Rachamim, mercy, means taking care of people's physical needs. Chanun, chen. Chen means warmth, graciousness, sensitivity, nurturing, empathy. Chen is different than rachum. Chanun is different than rachum, because rachum means taking care of people's physical needs, and chen means taking care of people's emotional needs. The person who's emotionally empathic, emotionally nurturing, sensitive. Are you that? Is that your best midah? Chanun. Erech hapayim, patient, relaxed, chilled, laid back. Everything's fine. I met one person like this in my life back in 1994. I remember it well because I never met anybody who was chilled before. Most people are pretty intense, pretty wired. This person I met was March 1994. It was a Tuesday. I think it was at 4 o'clock. I remember it well because it was the only time I ever met someone who was chilled. That person's erech hapayim. That person's chilled out. And when that person acts with chill and relaxed, he's bringing God's relaxation, God's chill, long-suffering, erech hapayim, patience into the world. God's long-suffering, He's patient. And some of us, one or two of us, are patient as well. When we act with patience, we're bringing God's patience into the world through our bechira, our free will. Rav Chesed, giving, always thinking how to help somebody. People work with Chai Lifeline or with the Jewish Carry Network, Gvuras Yarden. Always doing chesed for people, always thinking of how to help someone who's ill, making a cake for somebody, looking after them when they come from hospital, thinking, how can I help them? Not going to make a shidduch for somebody. That's a person who is Rav Chesed. MS, someone who's honest, integrity, doing the right thing, not speaking Lashon Hara. Notzer Chesed la'alafim. That means creativity, created with music, artistic, created with ideas. Notzer, to create Chesed la'alafim. No se avon v'pesha v'chata'a. That is, the person is forgiving, laid back, lets go of resentment. Very hard to do. To let go of resentment is very hard to do. No se avon v'pesha v'chata'a means to let go of anger, to let go of resentment, to let go of the hurts. Very hard to do. But God does that every day. He forgives us. He lets go of resentment for our betraying Him. By taking His breath that He breathes into me and speaking Lashon Hara, that's a betrayal of God. Taking the breath that God gave me and using it against people, using it against Hashem, that's a betrayal of God. And yet He lets me live. He lets us continue to live and still speak Lashon Hara, hoping that we'll do tshuva. That's no se avon. Are you a person who's forgiving? And benakeh, nakeh means resilience. Nakeh means to pardon, purity, to bounce back. Are you a person who bounces back from difficulties? Resilience. These are the ways in which we can work this week to experience hashgacha pratis by ourselves bringing God into the world by acting like Hashem. And that's this parsha. Zeh keli ve'anvehu. This is my God, and I will glorify Him. I will beautify God by bringing God into the world by my bechira. That's our job. So our job this week is to identify what is your series, your constellation of 2 or 3 midos tovos, not only one. Rav Oba says we have one pristine, perfect midah, but there's a constellation. There's more than one, 2 or 3 midos that describe this true constellation of what your neshama is about, who you are, what you're all about. When you're aware of it, you're God conscious, and when you act with those midos, and you're aware that you're bringing God into the world, that's called divine providence. That's called Gilu Shechinah. You can be Megala the Shechinah. You can reveal the Shechinah by acting with God's presence, acting with God's midos into the world. So when you see God's presence in your life, and you see different things that happen, which are divinely ordained and guided, those so-called serendipity moments, those moments which happen by accident, which are not accident, but guided by Hashem, and you acknowledge that, that's seeing the light of Hashem. That's seeing the Shechinah. That's seeing the divine providence. Shechinah means divine providence. Shechinah means the light of Hashem or Hashem. And the way in which we can make it deeper, by living, experiencing godliness, by experiencing what the Shivcha Ra'asa Bayam, Mashalo Ra'ach Yecheskel Babuzi, to experience what the handmaiden saw at the sea, is to experience the sea. This is my God. Who brings that? You do. I do. We bring God into the world by acting with Zeh Kili V'Anveyu. Act with your midah. Acknowledge it. Discover it. Find out, who am I? What are my godly attributes? Am I Rachum, compassion? Am I Chanun, Chen? Am I MS? Am I kind? Am I giving? Am I forgiving of resentment? Letting go of resentment? I am resilient. Am I truthful? Am I patient? Am I consistent? Hashem, Keel, leadership. Rachum, am I Chanun? Am I Erech Apayim? Am I Rachum? Am I Rav Chesed? Am I MS? Am I Notzer Chesed creative? Am I Nosei Avon forgiving? Am I Nakeh? When you identify that and you live it, you choose to live that way, that's bringing the divine presence into your life. That's bringing Hashgacha into your life. So one dimension is to see God's guiding hand in your life, to know that Hashem is with you all the time, and to look for it. The second dimension of this week is Ve'anveyu, bring God's Shekhinah into the world, to experience God's Shekhinah, His divine providence, and then to purposely, consciously bring it by understanding your Midah Tova, that you're an expression of Hashem, choosing to bring God's will into the world by your Midah Tova, by your best Midah. That's called having a relationship with Hashem. That's called having divine providence. That's called experiencing God. That's called experiencing divine providence. And Mitzvah Hashem, in that way, we can get closer to Hashem. This is Avodas Hashem. And this way, Mitzvah Hashem, we could be getting ready for next week. Next Shabbos, is Kabbalah Satorah. We have to prepare ourselves. Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah. We have to work on our midos this week so that we can prepare when we read the Torah and we get the 10 Commandments next Shabbos, meaning in 10 days from now. We'll have worked on our midos for 10 days and then be ready to be Makabel Pnei Shekhinah, to receive the Shekhinah, to receive divine providence by bringing the Shekhinah, by choosing to bring the Shekhinah